There, my name is Sarah. Sorry, I can't see me. um, I am Sarah Nickerson. I'm a psychic medium. I am the founder of NextGEN Medium, which is meant to be a vehicle to help people connect with their psychic ability, their intuition, and learn how to merge with the higher self through emotion recognition and then changing emotion. Transmutation would be another word. Manifestation would be another word, but I call it merging with the higher self because that's manifestation is like the product of those things, and it all comes down to emotions. So let's get real simple with it. So all of these things together, I think of as our metaphysical abilities. This is our innate human technology, and today my goal, my mission is to connect people with these abilities through NextGen Medium, NextGen Sovereign, the community I've begun, where there's an education center, and there's also the ability to practice with people in the next level of education. And so it's something I put together because we are in an era where understanding communication and technology and evolution of communication has got us to a point where communication is controlled through these man-made devices around us. But I think we're in an era where we are really going to be discovering the human technology within us that's more astounding than the technology that could ever be built outside of us. In fact, I'm a big believer that a lot of the technology that's built outside of us is replicating the things that we have within us, almost subconsciously trying to create the thing that we feel like we're disconnected from and missing, because our culture has disconnected us so much from our human experience. And that's another kind of piece to the puzzle. We're really getting to know the human experience. We're really looking at it under a microscope right now, especially with AI stuff going on. We're going, what does it mean to be human? What is human? And I think we're in an era of really defining what that is. And we can't define that if we don't recognize our own innate internal technologies, our own skills, intuition, psychic ability, and merging with the higher self. And so these are the things I teach. I have a podcast called Sovereign Humankind, which is meant to be sort of a 24 episode, let's dig into what this is about, and how you do it and why it's not something we do. And also getting started with it and how you can do that on your own. And it doesn't cost a thing. It's crazy. What's crazy about it is that it's so simple. And that's the part that I think people will have a hard time overcoming, is how simple it is. There might not be innate like dopamine hits with it. And then why would people continue if there's no dopamine involved? Everything that gets you hooked in this society, it involves dopamine, and your innate abilities have to compete with that. At one point, they didn't have to. And that's there's a lot of things I talk about in the podcast to help you understand kind of where we are and why we're so disconnected from these things. And a lot of it has to do with the conditioning of our culture on the individual level. So check out my podcast. I go in depth and deep with that stuff. And actually, when I wrap up this video, I'm going to be going right back to the computer to edit my episode 8 and 9 so I can publish those and get those out. And planning on 24 episodes to kind of start everything. I count it as series 1, with continuing series to be sort of like seasons, and different ways of doing things each season, different things talked about, but sort of basic things that are always kind of talked about. But this first series is really meant to be sort of an education course of like laying the groundwork of what the fuck we're talking about. Because I can understand that people would be like, what the heck is this? And there's a lot to talk about, but in the end, we do have a common culture with things. And so that is really where we're at with this particular video. And so I wanted to do a bunch of videos where we could talk about the different things, and I can give you some clarification from my own understanding, my own theorizing, my own experiences, and also like help culture gain a practical understanding of this stuff. So it's not so woo woo. It's not so disconnected from reality. It is reality. It's just a lot of people don't get to experience it because of sort of the exposure to an alternative that people just don't get to see, So today's topic, why psychics get it wrong. Have you ever had a psychic reading that was completely off? And have you ever had a psychic reading that was right on and like uncomfortably accurate? Maybe like made you think, oh my gosh, this stuff is real. That person is a psychic. Maybe you get kind of scared of psychics because you're thinking, oh my God, they're going to see everything that I did bad. I think I've come across a couple of those people lately. And so why are there psychics that get information completely wrong, and why are there psychics that get things eerily right? So I have been doing psychic work since 2018 when I took a one-day introduction to mediumship class that just changed everything. It changed everything. Melissa Gabriel, thank you so much. So with my experience, I feel like I have been the psychic. First of all, please know that I am super critical of myself. And I would say that most of the psychics that I've come across in the work that I've done are very hypersensitive and hypercritical. And that's just my observation from the people I've been around and stuff. And so like I fit in, it seems like, with the other people that I've come across that claim they can do this work. And I feel like I've seen the evidence that they are connected like I have been connected. Now, for me to get to a place of saying like I'm a psychic or that I have psychic ability, it took me a year, maybe a little bit less. And it took like heavy study. It took a deep dive. It was a lot of meditation. It was a lot of exploring psychics, like who else are psychics out there, and listening to them talk and getting to know their experience with psychic ability, even getting to see them do readings. And with that, I could connect with my own personal experiences. And through my time, there were plenty of people that I felt connected with, that I felt like it really resonated with my own personal truth. And then there were other people that I just did not feel a connection with. And for me, it's not that to say that they weren't psychic or they couldn't do the work, but it was more like how they explained things, how they understood things, how they did things, and even the readings that the eyes got to see, it just didn't jive with how I understood things or experienced things. In a sense, it didn't pass my own test. You know what I mean? So it took workshops. It took this was like 9 months, a year. And I would do things and I would get information right, but it wasn't completely right. I remember one exercise. It was there was a picture in an envelope, and I had to like psychically pick up on what the picture was. And in my psychic imagery, it was a bird, but there were so many details to the visualization that were completely the opposite of what were the picture, that I felt like I got it wrong, even though it was a bird. It was a bird on the picture. It was a bird that I saw in my visualization. But in my visualization, it was a completely different bird. It was a completely different environment. It had completely different colors. It was wrong to me, even though it was a bird. See the dichotomy there? That's really confusing, especially as someone who's new to the process and trying to test this. And is this real or is this not real? And eventually I started doing readings on people, and that's really scary. And that's what we're going to talk about here. But eventually I got a piece of information that came through and was immediately confirmed. And that piece of information, after 9 months of this journey, made me feel convinced that psychic ability was something I had, that psychic was real. But the 9-month journey made me realize that this wasn't an overnight switch of things. This was something that I learned, and that took time to develop, and took time for me to accept that it was real. There was stuff early on that could have been the things that tipped the scales for me, but it just didn't feel like it was time. It didn't feel like there was enough evidence. It didn't feel like it was clear enough evidence. But I definitely look back at some early experiences and say, geez, those really hit pretty hard. And could have been convincing for some people, but for me it wasn't, and I kept going. And so there was a test that I had to pass for myself to accept that this stuff was real. And so there's time it takes to really get to know this ability for yourself. I was not somebody who was just like born with it and like had it integrated in a part of my living in life. I can look back and see how it popped up occasionally, especially in dreams, like unconscious, like how can you say you're psychic when it happens when you're unconscious? Like that doesn't make any sense. And so that story is to tell you that, the psychic experience is a human experience. That there is a metaphysical connection, because there's unknown to it that makes it the metaphysical. Where is it coming from? How does it happen? How am I tapping into information? How am I getting sort of messaging as to where to go? That would be intuitive. What is it with being inspired that leads me to my purpose and allows for me to manifest, a life of abundance, all the hashtag words. That all of these things are tools that are part of our toolkit that we get so disconnected from. And when it comes to the psychic experience, I'm not here to debunk or defend anything. I'm just here to explain like my experience of why psychics get it wrong, why I've got it wrong in the past, and to have a better understanding of like how psychics can get it right. Not only to share that with psychics, and I hate using that word as like an identifier word, because I see it as a skill. Psychic, you are psychic. Like you use your psychic ability. That's how I think of it. But it's also for people to kind of gauge that there is maybe a real world concept here of psychic ability. And if this person is talking about it in relatively grounded, practical way, then is it so woo-woo? Is it so strange? Is it, real? And I come from the perspective it is real. It's been proven to me. It's been integrated, and I have found my conditioning of this particular subject to have evolved and changed, where at one point there was sort of a shame that was associated with it, of like trying to hide it from people. But there came a point when, I realized my mission was to share the stuff. And you can't carry the shame and also be like, but it's real, but apologize, like it doesn't jive. And so I've come to a place where it's like, yep, this is how it is. This is how it works from my understanding. And this is how we can change our society by integrating these things. What happens when we integrate these things? This is like where the podcast could really fill in those blanks. But there's so much in our conditioning that has like handed over some really big human things. um, what truth is. Like, we are told what the truth is. But even in the psychic experience, you have an experience that changes your reality, that counters what your culture believes of this concept. And that within itself makes you understand that what I know of the world, what I knew of the world, what I was told of the world is not actually how it is. And I think we're going through that pretty big lately, not just with like metaphysics or even like alien kind of woo woo things, but I think we're coming across that with our very culture, our very civilization of seeing corruption just not even being hidden anymore. And now it's like, what do you do? But all truth is one of the concepts of things that are sort of taken from you and not realized. What to trust, who to trust. You don't understand what that feeling is because those tools are kind of hijacked. Your emotions, your nervous system, these things are fucked with so that you don't gain a real understanding and experience of these things. And it's hard to trust the tools that aren't working right, aren't working well. And then choice is the other one, which I also call freedom. And with that, we are challenging cultural norms of like happiness, like that concept within itself, working towards happiness, working towards contentment. Well, isn't the pursuit of happiness, like, isn't that part, like, I'm an American, right? So that's a part of some document somewhere as to like the point of the United States is the pursuit of happiness. But I mean, our very culture says, you need to struggle, which doesn't mean you're not happy, but you need to struggle in order to get the little bit of happiness and then go back to struggle, because that's integrity, But here here we are saying, well, what if contentment and happiness is actually the constant, and it's not that one, you know happening that you come up for air for and then you're underwater for the rest of your 30 years. That's just a broad example, but um, there's a lot of challenges that are going on here. So let's dive into why psychics get it wrong. um, and to really kind of set things forward here, don't believe me. Don't change your truth because of something I say. Something I even say in the podcast. Don't believe me. You need to see this stuff for yourself. I'm a huge believer that you got to see it to believe it. And I always start people off, with these three abilities that I talk about. I always start people off with the psychic piece because for me, in my experience, that was the holy shit, everything's changed. This is a moment in your life when you see psychic become your reality. You see it in your mind's eye, you have it confirmed. This is the thing that there's a before and after, of this in your life. um So I keep forgetting my points, you guys. All right, let's move forward because, oops, I don't know what I just did right there. Let's move forward. Okay. Oh, why did I want to talk about this? Well, one of the reasons why I picked this particular topic was because of some astrology that was going on. So this was actually a couple days ago. I actually recorded this a few days ago. It just didn't upload to my cloud thing. Thanks, technology, once again. What we are looking at in particular is this little configuration right here. So this is Jupiter. It's actually a planet that is representative of spirituality and education as well, teaching. And this here is Mercury. These were the two focal points here. But what happened, and actually now it's July 1st, it was felt like that Mercury was going to keep moving forward and then finally conjunct Jupiter. So Mercury is a representative of the message, the messenger. I think of it as it is part of the metaphysical realm. It can absolutely be a part of our thoughts, but I can also see it as information that becomes integrated in our mind, and that's sort of like a given piece as opposed to a generated piece. This just, it's fine. So what actually happened and is happening right now is Mercury got to a certain point, it stationed, and then it started retrograding, it started moving backwards. So this is representative of the spiritual individual not getting the message. It seemed to get pretty close, but it didn't actually get received. And maybe there's something here that belongs, is a message for somebody out there. And maybe it's even having to do with the very subject of your spiritual psychic ability and the security of that skill for you. Okay. I'm being super interpretive with the themes here because when we talk about security, we can look at that Cancer piece. We can also say mom is a part of the Cancer piece. We can even say emotions are part of that. And actually, that makes a lot of sense for our conversation here because psychic is our topic. I'm not sure why I suck at this. Emotion that we just had mentioned is a part of what's going on when it comes to what can be the dysfunction of your psychic skill. And really, what we're talking about has to do with the signal, which is never wrong, the noise that comes along with being a human in this head, with this brain, and this nervous system, and these emotions. I'm a human being that came with a story. I, by the age of 5 to 7, my nervous system was set in place based on who I grew up with, who was around me, what was the family I lived in, what was the energy that was around, who comforted me, who didn't comfort me, who got upset with me because I had strong emotions, you know. These are the things that make the nervous system become function in a certain way. And sometimes the way that that nervous system sits with you after the age of 7 isn't very functional. It actually can work against you in some ways. And that's something that you grow up with. So you're a little person who survived, and that's how you survived, and then it sticks with you into your adulthood. Unless there's some stuff you do to gain capacities. And in the same kind of experience, you're a little kid who had emotions, you know. What was the environment for those emotions? How did you get molded with your emotions. So when something happens, what was conditioned of you, that is sort of another way to survive, maybe a social survival. And so we take these two pieces and we see them as, are they authentic of the individual, or were they manufactured? Manufactured in the sense of these things needed to change for this little human in order for them to have safety for their body, also safety for their social self. And with that, we get the understanding of how we become conditioned big people that actually sort of are still little people in certain aspects of ourselves, maybe some blunted pieces. And so psychic ability, while it's innate, it's biological. This is where I wanted to go with the psychic piece, because I wanted to clarify psychic, but I'm already kind of in this. So the signal, I don't know where that comes from. I don't have any answer for you with that. What is the signal? Where do we get the information? Where does the information come? Like, I don't know. But I know how to access it. And I know that it can be replicable. And I know that it can show its truth to us, that it has its evidence to share with us, and that it can be a practical tool for anybody. When you're standing in the grocery line, you'll get hits, if you're open to that. Sometimes you just fall into that brainwave place, and then it just starts happening. I didn't want this to be an hour-long video. I really didn't want it to be that, but it's going to kind of probably be it. But the noise piece, that's the piece that we really need to focus on as practitioners, as people who utilize the ability and are looking to gain trust in our tools. And so the noise piece really does involve us taking a look at ourselves and understanding, like, when it comes to social survival, what is it that I am conditioned for in order to please people, in order to get along and belong and feel valued and loved? Because sometimes those things are getting in the way of the signal. So let's go back to psychic for a second. Let me define this. Everybody thinks of psychic as a person. I want to change how people see this word, understand this word, and understand that it is a learnable biological skill. It's not an identity, and it's not a gift. I would say the people that get to experience psychic and own it as their truth through experiences, through their own testing and trialing and seeing its reality, I would say that is what makes it special. And honestly, it just takes time and shifting attention and awareness, which I say like really casually, but I just said it in a sentence as to like what is different, So in the podcast, I really dive more into like what psychic is. But I always think of psychic as it's always there. It's sort of like if you had an arm on your back, would you be able to really see it or understand that you can use it without being able to like wind your neck all the way back and look down, if you had like a little baby arm on the back? I don't know. But once you recognize it's there, then you're like, whoa, how did I live this long not knowing that was there? Because if you can't see it with your eyes, which is how we understand our reality, how we move through things, how we're conditioned and cultured, then it doesn't exist, right? And so when it comes to utilizing your psychic ability, really what it comes down to is, like I said, attention and awareness. Why it's simple stupid is because we need to shut our eyes and not look at a screen. And we're actually looking at the screen within the mind. And we're also getting to a place in our brain, in our brain waves, in our brain activity, where we're not thinking thoughts. Like these 2 or 3 steps, 2 or 3 concepts that I just talked about. Shut your eyes and remain awake. Like, how often do you do that? Well, if you want to do psychic work, then you're going to have to get used to doing that, because this is how we build the playground. So the second step is being able to relax and sort of become part of the experience of, like, in your body, in your brain, breathing, that kind of stuff. For some people, they won't get that far. Like, that's hard for them. And in our society, in our culture, think of the Gen Z kids being able to do this. Like, I really hope they can. And you know what? I want to give them more credit here. So I think they are absolutely capable, but I get concerned with the attention piece, right? Because our culture is being sped up when it comes to, like, our attention and what gets our attention. It has to be more active, more action. And this kind of work is really boring until you start seeing this stuff come true. And then you're like, holy shit, I can't believe this. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, by the way. Psychic stuff. Being able to get into a brainwave place where the chatter stops, where you stop planning, you stop strategizing, you stop criticizing. Oh, this is fake. This is real. What am I doing? Who do I think I am that I'm psychic? That shit, like, that means you're not there yet. So you keep waiting. You keep going a little bit deeper. Keep focusing on your breathing. And then once there's sort of like a calm and quiet, it's like the doldrums, that's when the screen can turn on and you can start receiving whatever comes through. You're just observing. I'm just watching. And that's probably the brainwave state, theta state, hypnotizing state. That's where you're getting your psychic information. That's how you get started. I told you everything you need to do. Now you just sit there and you watch. That's exactly how I did my shit. And that's how anybody can do it. But I already told you what the problems are going to be along the way. And if you don't develop a practice where in 6 months' time you've built the neural pathways, then you can't stand and deliver. By that I mean walking around, walking, talking, interacting, and receiving and sharing psychic information. Why a psychic would get it wrong could absolutely do with not having prepared their tool enough, or keep it tuned in order to share it. So that's one piece. The neural pathways, they're not strong enough. And that just takes time and practice. That's it. But some of the practice is being in front of a person to do a reading. Because imagine you have the tool, everything's tuned, you've been practicing by yourself, doing this work. Now, perform it. Completely different situation. Now, it's being put to the test. And now, your ego's really surfacing, because now you got to prove psychic ability is real, that you are a psychic, that you are special enough to be a psychic, that this person coming to you isn't wasting their time coming to you. Okay? I'm just getting to the details here. And then we have another layer of noise, because not only are we trying to tune in to the tool you built, but now we have an audience, and that puts things on a different level. Okay. So we have a noise problem. And the noise problem also has to do with making sure you can bypass those higher brainwave places, the critical thinking brainwave places. Now, I'm not saying critical thinking isn't of value. In fact, when you do your higher self connection stuff, that's all strategy. That's all discernment. And that's where that belongs. But critical thinking with psychic, there's a different situation going on here. And critical gets in the way. Oh my God, Sarah. Yes, psychic ability does not have to do with identity. It has to do with the task. So maybe if you are a practitioner and you find it hard to perform, this is a reminder to you. I am not a psychic. I am doing a psychic skill. I'm practicing. I'm riding a bike. I'm writing my name. I'm reading a book. These are all skills. And everybody can do it. I'm just the one that took the time to figure it out. Just like the kid who rode his bike. My son, 9 years old, finally, a couple months ago, able to ride his bike without training wheels and stuff. And for a while there, I was like, oh no, is my kid going to be the kid that doesn't know how to ride his bike? I love him so much. And I'm just being a mom that's like, wants the best for my kid, you know? But I am going, oh no, is that his identity? And then it goes, no. This is a task. This is something that you learn. This is something that takes time, right? You are just somebody who's learning to ride a bike, just like my kid. Took him a little bit of time. He got on there and he's doing it. He worries me sometimes, but he's doing it. So when it comes to that noise piece, I feel like a big problem of that noise piece is the people problem. One, that the practitioner is a person and people have problems. They are conditioned. They are meant to perform. These are things that we learn. These are ways that people like us, love us, and how make it so we belong. Make sure we have value. And also people that you do readings for can be critical, right? You want to perform and you want to deliver. And that's a lot to put on people with psychic stuff. And to also be a psychic who's been going through perimenopause lately, I feel like I'm in a brand new body. I feel like I'm in a brand new brain. My nervous system has been crazy lately. So to trust my tool right now, it's almost like I gotta retune it. Like I'm almost being introduced to a whole new way that things are happening here. But there are some standby things that have been telling me that I'm back. I'm back, baby. Oh, I just got chills saying that. In fact, it happened today. I had a dream 2 nights ago. I'm a 2-nighter dream person for psychic stuff. That chocolate chip muffins were made. And guess what happened today? Someone made me some chocolate chip muffins. I was very happy about that. And that while it's not like a big fucking deal, I don't know why I said fuck in there. Even though it's not a big deal, like it didn't change the world. It confirmed for me that where I am with my hormone journey, where I am with my nervous system set stuff, that I'm on the precipice of something. One, maybe for moving forward with my life goals, but also that my psychic abilities are back online and I can trust them as sort of a confirmation of, Sarah, they're here, they're ready for you to like really get tuned into. And man, I can't wait till this podcast, like I got it all in. I'm done with this series and I can move on to a new series because I feel like I am holding on retuning and refining and focusing on this logical, I got to tell the things, I got to get it out. I feel really compelled to like just get all this stuff out there. And that I'm not in a place to be tuning the tool. I'm in a place of delivering a message. So that's why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. But we got people problems. People problems really come from perception, filters. That's what that conditioning piece is all about. When you do psychic work, like I said, you are going beneath the filter of critical thinking. How do I compare? What should I be doing? No, that is not the conversation. There is no conversation. You need to shut up and watch. You need to observe. Let's talk about Charlie Kelly. Charlie Kelly is a character on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I love him. I think he's amazing. But that's not the Charlie Kelly I wanted to talk about. The Charlie Kelly that I also really appreciate and has really changed my perspective. That was supposed to be funny. Pepe Silva. Inside jokes. Building connections with the audience. Charlie Kelly is a medium from England. He's a real guy. And in the first year or two of my own journey of psychic ability, mediumship, he's a medium, he came around and he spoke to me in a way that like no other mediums really did. And I think part of it has to do with he was younger. I think part of it had to do with he was pretty straightforward with how he would talk about things and not dance around shit. That's also something I like of John Edward. But Charlie Kelly, he brought up something that really changed my perspective of being a practitioner. I wrote something on the board, by the way. It says the conditioned messenger. Charlie Kelly talked about things in a way that made me realize how much responsibility the messenger had. The messenger is the psychic, the messenger is the medium. I just wanted to look at my notes and see what I wrote about him here. Because my point has to do with his story. I don't see where I wrote about him. He had a sister who passed away when she was maybe 18 or 19, I think. So she was young when she passed away. And he would go to mediums and they would not mention her at all. And he felt like mediumship was a crock of shit because he knew that she would come through. He knew she would want to talk to him. He knew that she would be a person that any medium could pick up on because of her personality, because of her will, right? And so what Charlie teaches is that you as the messenger are what misinterprets or has the message wrong. And the idea is the signal is never wrong. The signal is never wrong. You can get any piece of information. This totally changed my perception of things, my understanding of metaphysical skill, of what you're capable of. You can get any piece of information. You can talk to any higher self. You can talk to any individual. You can have telepathy with any person. What makes it not work is the messenger, is the person who's receiving. Because if your belief as a medium is that there is no young person that could die young. Not to say there's a conscious understanding of that, but as a performer, there's risk involved with that one, right? As opposed to picking up on Graham and Grandpa. You go to a medium, there's a lot of grandmas and grandpas that people are picking up on. How often are they going to be mentioning the 18-year-old full of life young lady? And there's some details I believe is a part of the story, but I'm not 100%, so I'm not going to mention them. And so Charlie's belief is that you get in the way. You get in the way by being critical, by not being open enough, by not having a wide enough perception. And I'm here to say that you are not in the right place because you're not observing what's there. You're not completely open to the possibility. That goes for mediumship, that goes for psychic, that goes for all the things. You still have a filter. If the filter's there, you're gonna fuck up and you're gonna be the psychic who gets it wrong. So I gotta give a huge thank you to Charlie Kelly, because Charlie Kelly is the reason why I believe in a huge concept that nothing is hidden. Everything can be known. You can tap into any piece of information from any time in history. I'm a believer of that, and Charlie Kelly is the reason why that concept became a part of my reality. And I think having that underlying concept and that truth and that, like, I really believe this as part of my work. It sets a tone for every time I go in, the possibility is always the biggest I can get it. Can I say that I can go in with 100% no filter? I don't think that's possible as a human being. I don't think that's possible. In fact, there's a lot to this work that you need to accept that you're not going to know everything to do with anything. Because part of the limitation is being a human. And there's only so much that you can relate to that's being shown to you. And there gets a point when you do meditations and you sit for a long period of time when shit's coming through and you don't even know what you're getting. You don't even understand it. It doesn't even make any sense. And that's when you've gone too deep. That's when you're exploring the black matter and ethers and whatever. And honestly, if you want to go do that, that's fine. But I'm the kind of person where I would go, what's the practical use of all this? There wouldn't be. So, like, this is a waste of my time. All right. Thanks, Charlie. This is Paracelsus. I forgot to bring up his info. Maybe I can Google him real quick. Let me see if I have my correct information about Paracelsus. So one of the big things that I am super big about with all this stuff is our personal sovereignty as individuals utilizing these abilities. Because once we have our sovereignty, then we are not fear-based. Then we make decisions feeling probably the most secure in our skin a human being can feel. And I feel like this is missing from our human experience right now. And this is why I'm like, oh, we could have a revolution individually, but also as a collective that has these skills, that feels this sense of security. And then guess what? Like, all the power structures outside of us right now, they lose their power because we've gained our own. Our power relies on them right now if you don't have the abilities on board. When you have the abilities on board, you feel what truth is. You feel it. It bypasses logic because you feel it and you trust it and you move on. You know what trust feels like, so you know who to trust. You know what it feels like to trust yourself. I don't know a lot of people that are capable of that. But I definitely gravitate towards those people because I was a person who could not trust myself. And so I gravitated to the people who could trust themselves because then I could trust them and trust how they did things or what they knew. But now I understand things very differently. And I understand what trust feels like and who I can trust outside of me. It is phenomenal. That is a phenomenal skill to have, to be able to look at all the people in power and go, I don't know if any of these people are trustworthy. I feel that these people are not trustworthy. And there's a couple of famous people, like there is an emptiness there. And I'm almost like, how do other people not see this? I am just astounded. There's one famous person in particular that I am just like, how does nobody see this? This person is empty. There is a blank energy here. It's just like, there's with this whole like alien disclosure thing, which I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. Unless it talks about the human technology stuff, then I'm all for it. Like, fuck yeah, let's do this. But I really don't care about aliens. I believe there's aliens. I don't care. Um, but if there are aliens and they've integrated into our culture, like this person is like, what is it? I don't say public enemy number one, but I would say like example number one. I would be like finger points. It's really astounding to me. Anyway, moving along. And then with higher self merging, this really is about using emotions as plots on a map and being able to change where you are based on the emotion and how you want that to change. There's choice here. At one time, it was just an emotion. Now, with this work, now you go, that is the emotion. What's the emotion I want? Where am I moving towards? And then all of a sudden, you have a choice. I could stay there, but I want this. And the whole point of higher self merging is to gain happiness as often as possible and really building that trajectory, building that cycle. And it's not all happy all the time. In fact, challenge makes it more fun, I think. But it's really meant to put you in a great place and get the things that you want, while also having purpose on this earth plane and doing it. So many of us are working jobs because it brings in money, and that's probably it. But when you work with purpose, then like we have a different situation here. Purpose feeds into meaning and happiness. And when we're capable of doing that, we have choice and freedom. Freedom is what this experiment is all about. Freedom. Everybody wants it. My go-to, is lottery. You want to win the lottery? Why do you want to win the lottery? You want to win the lottery because it brings you freedom. It's not that you want to win the lottery, it's that you want your freedom. Oh, this guy, Paracelsus. Sovereignty. So that was the point of all that shit. It requires seeing things as they are, not as you want them to be. So this guy is probably my new favorite person to talk about because this guy, I can't believe I don't have the information. I'm disappointing myself. Not living up to my expectations, you see. Very critical here. So this guy was around in the Renaissance. That's my dog. I don't know how many times I've Googled this guy's name in the past 4 days. I'm Wikipediaing this, so just so you know. Okay, his real name. Oh, I know. I will be donating. You don't even worry. Theophrastus Bombast von Hohenheim. He was born in November of 1493. He died in September 1541. He's known as Paracelsus, a Swiss physician, alchemist, lay theologian, and philosopher of the German Renaissance. I actually came across this on Facebook, so kudos to Facebook for actually enlightening me with this guy. He was a pioneer in several aspects of the medical revolution of the Renaissance, emphasizing the value of observation in combination with received wisdom. He's credited as the father of toxicology. Paracelsus also had a substantial influence as a prophet or diviner. His prognostications being studied by Rosicrucians in the 17th century. I did not read this part, you guys. Paracelsianism is the most modern medical movement inspired by the study of his works. His deal with toxicology I thought was really interesting because his viewpoint was anything is toxic. It depends on the dosage. And he said even the toxic things at a particular dosage could be beneficial. And I think that is an important thing to understand and a very divine thing to understand, because then you're understanding the spectrum of life, that nothing is 0, nothing is 100. Everything, it's in between there. It's no black or white, it's just bad. No, it depends on how much. And that allows for a spectrum. And the fact that he revolutionized medicine with the concept of observing, seeing for yourself the truth. This goes hand in hand with how these skills, once observed, become practical usage and are absolutely a part of our reality. For him, his perspective was you become a doctor or whatever in those days by being an apprentice. And so you learn information from somebody who already has the information. But so often, and even nowadays with our institutionalized information, education, media, what is told to you as the truth isn't necessarily the truth. You need to see and observe it for yourself. But also that piece of received wisdom, we're giving credit to our innate technology. Because like I said, there's points when you get so integrated with your psychic ability and your intuition that you come across situations where you feel the truth. And you don't have to get logical to discern. There are times when you do, but there are also times when you're just so conditioned with your tools, which took time to do, that there's just automatic responses and then automatic moving along with your next thing. It just happens so fast sometimes. Sometimes I don't even notice until I'm thinking about it after. And that's one thing that I thankfully have been able to keep on board with going through my perimenopause journey, which again, changed my tools so much. But in some ways, it actually refined tools that at first I saw as problems because they were acting differently. But now I see them as, no, it was keeping me from doing a thing that I ordinarily would say yes to that would have overextended myself. Because I guess I'm kind of a yes man sometimes. So this guy's the shit, and we really appreciate his perspective because we are, as people who have not had experience with psychic ability on our own, we develop truth of psychic ability by experiencing it ourselves. And you need to observe. That's the right brainwave place. Observe. No critical thinking. That's too active. Why do psychics get it wrong? The life of a psychic is something to understand. I was 33 when I started the journey. So I had plenty of years of like normal lifing, of physical world's experience. But then there was a new world that became apparent to me, shown to me, that I started to get integrated into and that I could access. It's amazing. It's an amazing reality. But for most people, they don't know that reality. They think it's fiction. They might even think they're not invited. That it's not already a part of their reality. But as a psychic who at the age of 33, everything changed. Like I got to be a psychic, right? All of a sudden I'm that. Even though to me it's not an identity. There are two worlds I have to balance between. And there's two versions of me I have to balance between. One is the physical world reality Sarah that was conditioned to hold still, be quiet. Sounding kind of traumatizing, but you know, stop crying. Oh, good job with those grades. Oh, you're so musical. You're so artistic. You know, I'm trying to think of like other things because I was conditioned to not. I was conditioned to be out of my body, into my head, and be productive and ignore my body and hate my body. That was just part of my reality because I always felt out of control with what my body was doing. And so I became a person, that had blunted pieces of me, that had pieces of me that didn't feel like it had value unless I did this, or I acted like that, or I smiled, or I was funny, or, this, that, and the other. But then there's another part of me that's actually pretty new to my experience. And I don't have to pretend anything. I don't have to be anything that I'm not. And I can actually experience reality in pretty magnificent ways that feel really good to connect with. It feels like home. In my spiritual awakening experience, which happened after I took that class, like a week after, like it just like blossomed into feeling very different. There was a presence to the sky. That's what I remember. And I felt in love with the world. And that feeling was home. That's what I never knew what home felt like until I felt that feeling. And it was something that was spontaneous. It was something I'd never experienced. It was something like, what is happening? I didn't even know to think that it was a spiritual awakening. Like I didn't even have that phrase. I like had to look for what the hell is happening. I'm feeling like this and I feel that and the sky is like on my shoulders and what is happening? And that's the spiritual world, That's spiritual Sarah. That's Sarah that's like connected with her soul self, her higher self. That's me attaining my godliness. That's there for anybody. And so I have to juggle these two worlds. I mean, you can imagine wanting to just be in that world, right? That spiritual world. But that spiritual world is a lonely world. And it can become a delusional world comparatively because your reality is so much different than other people's reality. Your truth becomes so much different than other people's. And it's almost like unrelatable. But there's not a lot of people who have this experience of this reality. And so in my position, psychics in general, they have to like have a foot in each of these realities. And I got to say, having a foot in the physical world reality, it's really easy for it to become imbalanced and feeling more weight in that version of yourself than in the spiritual self. And it almost feels like the more weight over time gets heavier and heavier and heavier, and then you're feeling like you don't even have a place in that spiritual realm, like you just remember it, you know. But I got to say, once you have one foot there, once you experience it, it's like your life is destined to get back there. Like you are destined to get back there. Like everything in me wants to get back to that. And but the struggle is I have a family. I have a husband, I have children. We live in a physical world reality. I have to make money. I can't be doing my passions because it doesn't make money to secure a life for my family, you know? I've been pursuing NextGEN Medium for several years, since 1990 or 1999. 2019 is when I started the website. And so I was pushing out content. Boom, 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 boom. I quit my job in 2022 to pursue this stuff full time. Here I am, 2026. Passionate still, sharing what I can with the world, but ultimately, I have to keep a heavy foot in that physical realm because I got to feed my family and the economy is what it is. And, um, you know, it's kind of crazy out there right now. And I got to make sure my kids are fed, that they feel emotionally secure as much as I can do that. Um, they're educated, they're clothed, that my husband, maintaining that relationship with my husband, who has zero interest in spiritual stuff. Like he has no personal interest or care to get into this stuff. He doesn't care. And so there's so much of me that has to keep up with that game, that sometimes that conditioning, the noise comes back. And then I'm not practicing as much. I meditated last night before bed, but other than that, I don't really meditate anymore. But I know once I do start, like I'm going to be gravitating, navigating back to having more percentage of my reality to be metaphysical, spiritual, which disconnects me. But there are more people that are gravitating to this world that are around me, that maybe I was a little bit ahead of the game for some people. Um, but you know, here I am sharing like this is how life feels better and it's easier and it's practical and it's actually like connecting you with who you really are as opposed to the game that we're playing. This is the man-made game. This is civilization and how do I survive? Unfortunately, it's a tornado because you got to make money. But maybe we're at a point when the rules are changing and we can change those rules. And part of that has to do with reducing the noise, but also integrating your abilities. So, how do you get it right? Let me go back. How do you get it right? So, first, you need to prove that psychic ability is real. And you do that by doing the thing that I said in the very beginning of the video. Close your friggin' eyes, take some breaths, kind of pay attention to what's going on in your body, let your brain waves sink down to where you stop really having conversation. The thoughts of critical thinking stop. And then once it's in a quiet place, what I would do is I would say, okay, I'm ready to receive. Show me the information. I am a clairvoyant. So I see visual things. Sometimes it's like a picture, sometimes it's like a movie, sometimes it's happening as if I am right there, like interacting with it. Sometimes, most of the time, it's not just visual. Sometimes I hear things, sometimes I'm sensing things, sometimes I know the weight of something, sometimes I know how much space it takes up, sometimes I know how tall it is. When I do mediumship readings, it's like I'm talking to a person, you know? I can even get a sense that they have like an accent by how their mouth moves. I see animals. I can see how tall the animal is. I can see like how much, I can sense how much their fur takes up of their coat, as opposed to just like it getting down to the actual animal, you know, and the boundary of their skin and their bones. You know, like this is what it's like. And it's accessible. You got to explore it to see how it works for you. But for me, there is a point where I go, okay, it's time. Let's turn on the screen. And it's almost like a movie screen. But this is the space you build that gives you the information. It gives you artifacts. And then you take the artifacts and you go, what can I prove here? How can I go about doing that? For me, I had to go to my mother-in-law and ask her information about her father, because I had a meditation where he came through and he gave me lots of information. I passed it along to her and it all got confirmed. And this within the first 2 months, 6 weeks of taking that class. And a lot of that information was information that like still surprises me that I got all that information. How do you get it right? Don't ignore the noise. Observe the noise. What is the noise? Why is that noise there? When I first started exploring, sometimes it was like, why do I think I'm that person? Because I struggled with being special. I struggle when people are really surprised by my talent or something, you know, and even saying that, like, I hate it. I got praise in an email for something at work and everybody got it. And I was just like, no, please don't do that. And I almost like want to go to the guy and be like, don't do that. Because there's noise in me that says like, you're not that special. You don't deserve that. Right? Like that's a personal value piece. That's still there. That's still there. That's part of my noise. And it's my work to go, well, that's part of the noise. And I know that that gets in the way of observing the message. Right? And the more I see it, the more I witness it, and the more I dismiss it, the less noise it becomes. Now, that doesn't get rid of the reason why that's there, but it's certainly sharing that with me, isn't it? And that's something for me to explore when I'm doing my higher self stuff, when I'm strategizing and I'm clearing shit out. That's therapy shit, by the way. Higher self stuff. That's therapy shit. Get it right. What else can we do to get it right? Let me look at my notes. Defogging the screen of perception. Observe first, interpret second. Everything's about observation. Just watch. And then when it comes to like performing and like giving a message, just give them what you get. That's my phrase. I'm just going to give you what I got. And it's like not my responsibility, because I'm just telling you what's coming through. How do you get it right? You got to tune your tool. I think I saw something, and I think I even have it in the podcast. It takes 60 days to learn a new routine or a new thing. Yeah, check it out on the podcast because I think it's on there. 60 days. And so, if you sit for 60 days, you don't even have to do it every day. Doing meditation where you're practicing getting to that place of quiet, the doldrums, and you're watching what comes through. You'll have built the highway that is accessible, walking around, doing things. It happens when I watch Jeopardy. I'll get answers. I'll see the visualization of the answer, and I'll be like, oh, yep. Not because I'm intelligent, but because of my psychic ability. Actually, Melissa, the medium that started everything for me, one of her cues and clues of her abilities was thinking back to when she was a kid and thinking she was really smart. And she always goes, I always thought I was really clever. And then after a while, learning about her things down the line, it was psychic ability. It wasn't that she was really clever. It's that she's receptive. And so there are plenty of examples of me watching Jeopardy where it's information I knew from school that is still there, or it's psychic information that I'm getting. And sometimes I say the answer and I know it's psychic, and then it gets right. And then I turn to my husband and I go, that was psychic. And he's like, mm-hmm. He does not care. He does not care. What is going to guide you in this journey to get it right? It's not being right. It's sharing what you see, what you observed. It's continuing because of curiosity. Now, I would be lying if I said part of my journey of figuring out am I psychic? Do I have psychic ability? Was kind of ego driven. It was, am I one of those people? And in the end, the answer was yes, comma, however, comma, this is for everybody. It's a skill, like reading and writing. And you know what? There are some people who have a hard time with reading and writing. And there's going to be people who have a hard time with psychic ability. But there are other skills. There's intuition. There's one person that I've worked with in the past that I could see would have a hard time with psychic ability, but he had intuition. He had intuition that worked with, now I talk about in the podcast, you'll listen here, Sovereign Humankind, that I talk about the two things that are linked with intuition, your emotions and your nervous system. This guy, I'm not sure if he was connected with his emotions so much, but his intuition was pretty tuned in, and it was kind of eerie, and it almost made me suspicious. Psychic? I don't know if he could do psychic, but he definitely had that intuition piece, and I can also see how psychic could have been difficult for him. These tools are accessible to everyone, regardless of background or resources. This is internal technology. The infrastructure is already in you right now. I can look back. So again, this happened when I was 33, right? This is when I started looking into it. This is when I started doing all the things, right? I was 12 years old. I can look back to being 12 years old and remembering the psychic dream I had that stuck with me all the way up to being 33. And it felt like something that happened to me, but it doesn't matter because it was an example of a psychic dream that became a psychic experience, that became an experience. Much like me talking about the muffin thing earlier in the video. When I was 12 years old, I had a dream that my mom was showing me these red pants. And she would never own something like that. But 2 days later, she came home. She went shopping. She showed me the new pair of pants that she bought. And it was those exact pair of pants. Now, a big part of this story is that I was 12 years old. And on that day that dream came true, I had started my very first ever period on that day. And so there's something to this sort of happening that I feel like is important, but also kind of sets the tone, I think, as I look back, as There was an initiation there, but there was also an experience that I can look back on. I can remember that day. I can even like get close to what the date was because it was the week before 7th grade started, you know? And there's so many pieces to it that I can look back on and go, it was there the whole time. It's been there the whole time. And other things I remember experiencing throughout my life that make me go, psychic ability was there the whole time, or intuition. All right, what else do we have to talk about? You are tech. Technology isn't always the things that are outside of us that are built to built using materials that children had to mine and maybe aren't healthy because they had to mine them. Technology is also the things you are born with, and that is a part of being a human being. Bioperceptual tools. And my belief, if we go back to this astrology chart, my belief is that Uranus going through Gemini in the next 7 years is us understanding our own technology and maybe science telling us about it. We're going to have huge revelations when it comes to communication. And as much as AI could be a part of that, technology, Uranus is also technology. And changes with communication happening at that time that can, I've lost my train of thought, that has to do with social media or media like television, reporting, how we get information. Huge changes in the next 7 years. Well, guess the fuck what? You get this stuff on board, it's your own evolution and your own awakening. You know what I mean? Also, Pluto going through Aquarius. I'm a huge believer that if a huge chunk of the population connects with their psychic ability, is even able to see it as a part of them, having evidence of it through their own observation, their own received wisdom. Right? Paracelsus, thank you. And they are observing and aren't the noisemaker. Thank you, Charlie Kelly. Pluto and Aquarius is power back to the people. Getting these tools is getting our power back. It's getting our individual power back. It's getting our collective power back. These tools are just so important in gaining our sovereignty. And this is part of the revolution for the next 20 years. Okay. And I am saying that because I got a podcast, Sovereign Humankind, that is all about talking about the tools, psychic intuition, higher self merging, and why we're foreign to this concept and how we become integrated back into it. I am at a point in the series at this point where I'm getting ready to write the episodes where you're exercising these abilities, giving you the tools and the exercises to start exploring them. And then you're on your own. Like you can do the things. Of course, I have a community set up. So if you want more of a structured way of doing things, which I would want, I got that at nextgenmedium.com. NextGen Sovereign is my educational center and community. And Foundations is where everybody begins and where it's really like self-led. I give you all the things to do. I even have like a 21-day run through of like how you can just do these things. And then integration phase is where people are playing with each other. That's a weird way to say that. We've got group stuff. I'm doing more mentoring with people, with you. And we are getting to work. And you are feeling embarrassed. You're feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. Is this worth the money? And I'm going, you just hang in there and you keep doing the work. You'll get there. And then the third tier of the group is when you are thinking about going professional with your stuff, you want to share it on more of a professional level, having clients. This is where I really want to nurture the entrepreneurs of this work. It's a weird thing to be an entrepreneur and do psychic stuff or do tarot or do astrology or whatever other modes that we can utilize, because there's so much ingrained in us to feel a shame about it, because there's people that do it and aren't really connecting with abilities. Maybe they're ripping people off. I personally don't think there's a lot of people out there doing that. But going through the program, you get the sense of like how you measure up with other people, but also getting to know the norms of the stuff. And then you start feeling a sense of like, should I be doing this on a professional level? Is this just more of a hobby for me? And that is something that I want people to be able to see, you know, the more the leadership of these groups, training and mentoring, be able to see like that it is possible to have a business and do this, to teach and make a living off of that, or pretty close to making a living off of it. You know what I mean? People need to see it happen. And I want to be able to have a tier that is capable of doing that, where it's really supporting the entrepreneurs. It's helping with tools and marketing and what works and templates and website templates and training and stuff like that. So if you want to check it out, it's at nextgenmedium.com. We haven't rolled out the top tier, that third tier yet, because we're still working on getting people in foundation and getting the numbers to do practice work. But of course, even if we don't have the numbers, I'm still mentoring people because that's where I belong right now. So check that out, nextgenmedium.com. We are the revolutionaries. I say that laughing, but it's true. Like, we are leading a new frontier if you join me in this work. And it's so funny I say that. If you look in this part of the chart, I know too much about astrology at this point. This is actually set up on to line up with my chart. That's why it's Leo's at 1, because this is my chart. This is how my chart would be figured out here. But Mars and Uranus about to conjunct. A lot of people are really concerned about this placement. This is supposed to be exact on July 4th, which we're all like, what's going to happen? That's Mars is linked to war, assertive energy, aggressive energy. Sometimes it's initiative, and then Uranus is shock and surprising. And so to have those two merging on July 4th, the birthday, 250th birthday of America, as an American, I'm going, what is going down on that day or around that day? So putting that in this video, seeing what happens. But on an individual level, this is going out to my network. I'm sharing this with you guys. And so this is us doing the work and maybe really initiating Uranus as its revolutionary energy. It's a rebel. I love Uranus. I hate how it shows up in my life, but I love its spirit. It's a revolution, it's rebellion, it's surprise, it's shock, it's realization. It's called the Great Awakener. It does its work by fucking things up, and then you go, oh my God, what do we do? And then you really get a sense of like what you want, who you are, how things need to change. Uranus has come about in the United States at times of war, the Revolutionary War in Gemini, Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War II. And it came about at the heights of like war and conflict. And so when it shows up, we're looking at really seeing a defining moment of history, at least what we've seen in the United States in the past. And this is when decisions are made. So not only am I saying that as understanding like kind of this time in history, but also like I'm about to release this video. I have my podcast out. Please share this with people if you think people are interested in this kind of conversation. But that Gemini piece, you are my 11th house. You are also could be my 7th house. Either way, we're intellectuals, we're thinkers, we're communicators. That's our work. Gemini, definitely communicator. Like you're part of my network. If you're my client, you are almost an alien. that's that's no offense. You're a different kind of cat, right? That's not a bad thing. That jives really good with me because I always felt like I didn't belong. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. To also have that modern ruler Uranus, which is related to Aquarius, the ruler of modern ruler of Aquarius in Gemini, like these are just intertwined and linked here. And the other added piece for this on July 4th is Gemini and that communication, information. I mean, for July 4th, which is a Saturday, to have news coming out on that day, I'm not quite sure. But it also doesn't have to be on that day. It could be a day or two before. It could be a day or two after. We might not even know what it is until later on. But with Uranus in the mix, it's kind of like, well, I don't think it can be hidden. I don't think this would be able to be covered up. This is like shock, But we're going to find out. Maybe it involves twins because that's Gemini. Oh, okay. Let me go back to our thing here. You are tech. My website, nextgenmedium.com. NextGen Sovereign is the community and education center I've started so I can pass along what I know and get you started on getting your tools on board and getting that sovereign life back. Because we're done fucking around. We're done with this. Let's move on. Let's get to our revolution and let's take back the power. That's what I'm all about. Sovereign Humankind podcast. That's my podcast that I'm slowly rolling out. If I get feedback on the fact that people are listening to the podcast, maybe that would light some fire under my ass to actually like really get down to business and recording these episodes. I will tell you what's holding me back quite a bit is having to edit the episodes because they're long and sometimes they're 2 hours long. And I have to like whittle it down to 45 minutes an hour because I don't want you to have to listen to my rants like I do. I think that's it. Hey, thanks for watching. Comments below. Oh, hey, if you liked what I do, if you like what I do, you like what I share, if you go to my podcast and you like that, please help me with my mission. I would love to be talking about this stuff and doing this stuff for a living because then I could actually make impact the way that maybe I should be doing it, how I would prefer to be doing things. And if I had more financial backing, then I could just be doing this stuff for a living and going and doing talks and presenting information and being able to mentor people more often. Buymeacoffee.com. That's how we can start this. Buymeacoffee.com/nextgenmedium. That lets me know that people care about what I do. Like my podcast, like my videos. Give me some comments down below. What do you think of the stuff I shared with you? What are other ways that psychics get it wrong? Why they get it wrong? Maybe you're a psychic and I didn't touch upon something that you experience or that you've seen with other psychics. Maybe you're someone who's never explored that stuff before. Maybe you have a different viewpoint. Maybe you think it's all fake and phony and bullshit. Like, that is absolutely part of the conversation, because we're being practical here. We're being down to earth, and we're understanding the cultural understandings of this stuff, and we're changing, we're evolving that. We're creating a way for people to be able to have their opinion, but now there's an action to testing the opinion. And if you're not going to do the action to test the opinion, then how much of an opinion can you have in the conversation, right? So let's get to work. Go buymeacoffee.com slash nextgen medium. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if there's another subject that you would love for me to expand upon and show you my awesome slideshows and talk more about Paracelsus, I would love to be able to do that, because apparently I need to learn more about Paracelsus and go support Wikipedia and maybe donate to them as well. All right, that does it for this video. Listen to the Sovereign Humankind podcast. I'll put links below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. All right, here's to an awesome future of sovereignty and power back to the people. Thanks, bye.